Are you confused about the right terms to use when it comes to disabled people? If so, then this series could be just what you're looking for. Hello people, my name is Ben Andrews and this is Ben Andrews Inc., a channel dedicated to topics and issues relating to disabled people. My interest in this space comes from my own personal experience, being registered blind, having a degenerative visual impairment, retinitis pigmentosa. This has led me to set up my own company, write a series of children's picture books, and release regular content to raise awareness and work towards an inclusive world for disabled people. And this is my War on Words series, where we're exploring the don'ts, the do's and the confused when it comes to terms associated with disabled people, in the hopes it'll help people not to be discouraged from doing the right thing for fear of saying the wrong. In my last video we touched on the term disability, and in this one I wanted to explore the popular but not without its flaws, disabled. So with that being said, let's get into it. You may have noticed from my other videos that disabled tends to be my preferred term when referring to, well, disabled people. I like disabled because it's not just a term we apply to people, we use it in all sorts of situations to describe something being stopped or limited in some way. For example, disabling your alarm clock in the morning. In this way, for me at least, it makes disabled much easier to understand and explain when we're looking at how external factors can limit someone from doing something, aka disabling them. This isn't any revolutionary concept of my own. The social model of disability has been championed by disability rights activists for decades to acknowledge how external factors disable people as much or to a greater extent than anything inherent. For example, a person may not be able to see that well, but it's the small text, cluttered streets and people's attitudes that often disables or stops them from doing certain things. And as much as I like and support this concept, I do question whether disabled in this way can be owned by a single community as it is currently suggested to. And I say that as, under this line of thinking, many people, even those considered non-disabled, could in theory be disabled. People may be disabled from accessing certain educational institutions because of their background, opportunities because of their race, or pay because of their gender. These characteristics wouldn't necessarily ever support someone to identify as disabled, but under this model of thinking, they well could be. Now some people may say that this is a good thing, as the more people we have relating to and identifying with the term disabled, the more people will have fighting against the issues that disabled people face. But it also risks being too broad, diluting the focus and attention given to issues impacting specific communities, and given a wider lack of societal understanding of this interpretation of the term and negative connotations that come along with the current definition, it's unlikely to get people behind it in this way. The strongest counter to disabled being applied to people beyond would immediately consider to be disabled is that to be disabled you have to have an impairment or condition. But over the years we've considered many demographics who have impairments or conditions. Using the same examples as earlier, it's been argued that people are intellectually impaired due to their social classification, race and gender. And it wasn't too long ago we'd considered non-heterosexual attraction a condition in need of cure or treatment, with some examples of practices which suggest this perception still exists today. Now I'm not saying I agree with any of this, but given what we have and in some examples still do consider to be an impairment or condition, is it really an appropriate measure to inform who is and who isn't disabled? Even in the disabled community itself, there are groups who are rejecting the notion that they have an impairment or condition, such as the autistic and deaf communities. So where does that leave us? And who's to say who is and who isn't impaired anyway? It's such a subjective concept. A person who's hearing impaired might be more intelligent than 95% of non-disabled people. So would that mean 95% of non-disabled people are intellectually impaired compared to the hearing impaired person? We could argue so. And my final point around why the term disabled may not work relates to identity. Many disabled people consider being disabled part of their inherent identity, a characteristic and something which makes them who they are. Yet in the same breath we're championing the word disabled as a way to acknowledge external factors that disable people. How can something external inform something we consider to be inherent? It doesn't add up. If these barriers are removed and we become less disabled, does our identity fade with it? Now you may be thinking that this is becoming pedantic and we're heading down a rabbit hole that we don't need to. As long as we know who is and who isn't disabled, do we really need to think on it this deeply? But given what I've just said, I do question whether the term disabled truly allows us to do this. And in any case, the whole point of this series was to show that even the most preferred terms have their flaws, to encourage people not to get so worried and worked up about saying the wrong, as when we look at it, is there any term that is absolutely right? Thanks for listening, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please do follow me at Ben Andrews Inc. for more content on topics and issues relating to disabled people. Subscribe to this channel, like, share and comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the term disabled. Is it the best we've got? Is it the best we can do? Or is further work needed to really find our term? And on that, I hope you all keep well, keep safe, and until next time, take care.